Good afternoon, everyone. Country Flyboy here, and today, the cruise video of the Cessna 208 tutorials. Alright, so this one's going to be pretty short. We're going to talk mostly about systems on the plane, because cruising's pretty straightforward. You set your power how you want, you fly the plane along your course or whatever. So normal cruising is performed at any desired power setting up to the maximum cruise power. Observe ITT, engine torque, and engine NG cruise limits. Do not exceed the max cruise power torque shown on this graph. Also know that if the aircraft has a new engine in it, it will exhibit an ITT below 740 when at max cruise torque. That's normal. Now, unfortunately, Carenado did not include any cruise performance data with the Caravan. So I'll try to find a place online where you can look at cruise performance data. If you have the Carenado EX Caravan, that one did come with cruise performance data, so you could use it if you also have this one. I'll try to find a place online, though. There'll be a link in the description if I did find one. If I didn't find one, if there's no link in the description, then I didn't find one. So real quick, let's go ahead and run through the cruise checklist. Alright, so ice protection as required. It's not required right now. Pitot static heat on if outside air temperature is below 4 degrees. Propeller 16 to 1900 RPM. We're getting, yep, right at 18. 17, yep. Power set as desired per cruise tables. And ITT less than 740 for normal operations. ITT is less than 740. Yep, that 40 is the top of the green arc. So we're still within the green operating range here. Okay, so pitot heat should be on whenever the outside air temperature is 4 degrees or lower. Again, outside air temperature can be found looking at the top left. It is currently just below, it's actually below 4 degrees Celsius right now, because Celsius is the inner ring, and we are at minus 10 almost, so we need to flip our pitot static heat on as per the operational parameters of this airplane. If icing conditions are encountered, we also need to ensure that the additional anti-ice systems are on. You can find anti-icing right down here. So we have, let me flip cabin lights on for a second. We have a stall heater, and we have a wing light to actually look out on the wing. We also have a windscreen heat, a prop heat, and a boot pressurize switch here. Only the prop is clickable, so basically these two are not clickable. Inertial separator is also part of the anti-icing system. We'll get into this in just a second, how that thing works. Alright, so again, if icing conditions are encountered, ensure that additional anti-ice systems are on and the inertial separator is in bypass mode. Now, the inertial separator, let's talk about how that thing works. The inertial separator is a system designed to separate foreign objects from the air before it can enter the engine and cause damage. It does this by using two doors and the laws of physics. When set to the normal position like it is now, the airflow into the engine inlet will only have to make a gentle turn. However, when set to bypass mode, the main air inlet door closes and a secondary one opens. Now that secondary inlet will force the air to make a sharper turn prior to entering the engine. Any objects with mass like ice, dirt, etc., they'll have inertia. And when the air is forced to make the sharp turn into the engine, the inertia of the massive object will carry it forward and away from the engine inlet, so it won't enter it. Note, there is a small drop in power when moving the system from normal to bypass. This is expected as the direction of the air is flowing, as well as its velocity prior to entering the engine will change. However, it should subside and the engine should return to normal when at higher power settings. It won't return to normal on the ground at idle, but let's show you how it works. So to turn on the inertial separator, we click this lever here. Now that is going to close the primary air inlet door and open the secondary one. Watch our engine instruments as we click this thing. I'm clicking it now. Okay, so notably, the engine is not returning back to the power setting it was at. It should, but it's not. And we put it right back there. Now, in the default Caravan, I think it actually will return to the normal power setting, though. Now, take warning. There is a difference between encountering icing conditions and flying into known icing conditions. The systems on the Caravan are anti-ice systems, so they are designed to prevent ice from accumulating. De-ice systems are designed to remove ice that has already accumulated. The Caravan does not have de-ice equipment, so it cannot remove icing that has already accumulated, and it only works on the protected areas of the aircraft. As you can see from these pictures up on screen now, it does not work on unprotected areas. Unprotected areas of the airplane can still accumulate icing. That ice that accumulates there does affect the way the plane flies and even its weight. Knowing this, even if your aircraft is certified for flight into known icing conditions, it's still advisable to avoid it. So all that does mean, yes, if you think you're going to be going into icing conditions, you need to flip on the de-ice, or correction, anti-icing systems prior to entering those icing conditions, because they don't help you once you're already in them. Once the ice starts accumulating, it's on there. They don't get rid of it. They can just prevent it from forming. And remember, they only work on the protected areas. Now, we want to monitor closely our fuel on the flight. The fuel level of the aircraft should be closely monitored, particularly for a fuel imbalance. An unbalance more than 200 pounds should not be exceeded. Between the two tanks, basically. So right now we're pretty much right even at 950 pounds of fuel, but we could have a fuel imbalance. There's a number of ways that can happen. So we want to make sure that if a fuel imbalance happens, we don't want to exceed a 200-pound difference between the two tanks. Now, normally, both tanks are set to on by normal operations. However, if a fuel imbalance does occur, you can move one of the fuel tanks to off to allow a balance to be corrected. Just don't move both of them to off at the same time, or that will shut fuel off to the engine. Now, what's this lever right here? This is the oxygen control. So we'll get into the oxygen here in just a second, but one thing I want to talk about is the ignition system. We got a little switch over here between norm and on that turns the ignition of the aircraft on. Now, we don't use it in startup, it's in normal position. What this switch is for is whenever you're flying in heavy precip, and probably when you're in icing conditions too would most likely help, you want to have the ignition switch to on, and this will continually run the ignition system of the plane. This is to help prevent engine flame out from moist air, say when you're in rain and whatnot. You'll get an annunciator light when that is on. Additional note here, any prolonged G maneuvers of 0 or negative Gs will starve the engine oil pump and result in engine damage. Now, what about our oxygen up here? So, Cessna necessitates the use of oxygen on this aircraft whenever it's above 12,500. I believe we've already discussed the oxygen requirements. Just a brief iteration. For flight above 12,500 for 30 minutes or more, then required flight crew, which on this aircraft is just the pilot flying, has to have oxygen. Above 14,000 feet for any amount of time, the required flight crew has to have oxygen, and above 15,000 feet for any amount of time, everyone has to have oxygen. So that's what the regulations say, but Cessna wants oxygen in use for all occupants when above 12,500, and it also recommends that you use oxygen when flying at night. Now, we have been up at 12,500 for more than 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and flip that on. And you can see the gauge will step up to the green arc here. If that ever drops out of the green arc when we're in an oxygen required situation, we need to descend down below 12,500. And again, if you're flying at night, it's usually recommended to have oxygen on as well. And one final note about oxygen: no smoking allowed on the airplane when oxygen is in use. I can guarantee that's not a good combination. Alright, so right over there is Lake City, which is our second waypoint in the flight plan. Now, right there is the interchange between I-10, this road we've been following, and I-75. We want to follow I-75 northbound, and that will get us to our destination airport. So, real quick, I'm going to look, and I can see how I-75 runs. I'm going to turn the heading indicator to go this way, about 330, and that will get us flying northbound parallel to I-75, and that will take us all the way to our destination airport. Now is about the time we would want to start working on our descent planning, etc., but that's for the next video. So real quick, let's just go ahead and start paralleling I-75. I want to see that out my left window. And there we go. This will take us all the way to our destination airfield. So note, even though I have no GPS flight plan loaded, I don't really need one. I can navigate just using the outside landmarks. So we'll fly parallel at I-75. I need to turn back to the left just a little bit. And that will get us to destination. So hope you enjoyed this cruise video. Cruise, as normal, is a little short because there's really not much to talk about, but we went over the systems, how the inertial separator works, as well as oxygen and anti-icing, stuff like that, and I had a few good pictures for you. So hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.